Hello everyone. Today we are going to make Chow Chow. Chow Chow was originally made in about 1912 on a little homestead in Nebraska. No, not actually, I have no freaking clue when Chow Chow was invented. Basically what Chow Chow is at the end of the fall, before the first frost, you would harvest all your vegetables that you have in the garden. So your green tomatoes, any bell peppers, some cabbage. And what they would basically do to preserve that, they would go ahead and make Chow Chow, which is something like a relish. So today we're going to make Chow Chow. It's pretty simple. I've got green tomatoes out of the garden. We're going to use bell peppers, some cabbage, some onions, a little bit of vinegar and some salt and sugar, and then also a little bit of cumin and mustard seed. And I've made this in the past seasons and it's really, really good. So I just kind of want to take you guys through this. Let you see how it's made. It's really pretty simple. We'll actually can it and so that you can have it throughout the winter. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we got to do is we got to take all these vegetables and we've got to cut them up, and we basically got to chop them up into small pieces, kind of like the size of relish. And I'm going to use a food processor here to make that job a little easier. So you can see there's an awful lot of vegetables, so this will take a little bit of time to do it. We'll put them in the food processor and whiz them up. And I'll show a little bit of that. Okay, after all of that chopping, ended up with quite a large bowl. I used a food processor, as I said, and it does a pretty good job of getting it cut up, chopped up, probably a little finer than if you did it by hand, but that's worked really well in the past. So that big bowl, essentially, and I'll put the recipe in the description, was about 12 medium onions. I had 1 medium head of cabbage, as you saw. There were 12 bell peppers, a mix between green and red and yellow. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to salt this. And what the salt's going to do, it's going to drive the moisture out, and it's going to sit overnight in the refrigerator. And when we go to process this tomorrow morning, this will be really crispy. And the really nice thing about the Chow Chow is that even though we're going to water can it for 10 minutes in boiling water, it actually is really, really crunchy. It's much like how you make bread and butter pickles. You also salt those and let those go overnight. The cucumbers and the pickles are really, really crunchy. So this will be really crunchy as well. So what we're going to do is, I probably used a lot more green tomatoes than normal. The recipe I normally use about 4 cups with what I've told you so far. I probably used about 12 cups just because I had them and I wanted to use them. So we're going to salt this now. And the way I like to do it is a lot of the recipes give the salt and the spices in teaspoons or cups or volumetric measurements. I like to use weight. I do a lot of curing meat and a lot of fermentation of stuff and sausages, and weighing the spices pretty much ensures that you're going to have consistency. So I was going to use about 1 cup of kosher salt with this. So the issue is with kosher salt, it could be ground fine or it could be ground coarse. And volumetrically, 1 cup would be quite different in the salt content. So what I'm going to do is measure it. So I usually use about 3/4 of a cup for the normal kind of recipe. I did more green tomatoes, as I said. So I'm going to use right at 1 cup, and I'm going to measure it and record it for next time as well. So it's about 225 grams. So I'll record that on my recipe and use it. So now all we have to do right now is to salt our mix of vegetables here. So it's a little bit of an unwieldy bowl. I kind of wish I'd had one that was a little bit bigger, but this is already a huge bowl. So what I'm going to do is just simply put some over the top and try to mix it up. And like I said, this sitting overnight, there'll be a bit of water that's expelled at the end, but they will be really, really crunchy. Even the final product that it's canned is crunchy, so that's really cool. So there we go, add the salt. Now, you may be thinking, holy crap, that's a lot of salt. Yes, it is. But we want the salt to do its thing. And when we're done with this tomorrow, when we take it out of the fridge, we're actually going to rinse this. So we're going to use the salt to expel water to help make it crunchy, but we are going to get rid of all that residual salt. Because if you left it in there and just added the vinegar and the sugar and the spices, it would be inedible. It would be horribly salty. So that's one thing to remember if you make this. Don't forget to rinse it. Not that I've done that, but I've done other recipes where I did forget to rinse the salt and it didn't turn out so hot. So again, just keep working the salt in. If you can get in there with your hands as well, any way you like to do it. This is very similar to cabbage. Obviously there's cabbage in here, but to make sauerkraut, it's just really, really simple. You do about the same thing, shred the cabbage, and you salt it. And you let that go. So that's a little more precise because you do want the salt, and you will use the brine of the sauerkraut because it does expel that water, like I said. So with the sauerkraut, you're actually putting in a specified amount of salt. Here, like I said, we're going to rinse it. So we'll continue to do this. We'll get this done, and I will put some saran wrap over this. We will cover this, and I'll put it in my refrigerator, and then we'll come back tomorrow and we'll finish it off. Okay, welcome back to day 2. So the Chow Chow was in the fridge overnight, and let's go ahead and reveal it. Smells great, really does. Okay, looks like there is a ton of broth that was created. So we know we did a good job of getting some of the water out of them to make them crunchy. Let's see if we can get a little peek at that. And there we go. All right, so next step is, you can see I have another big bowl here. We're gonna take this to the sink. I've got a colander here. We're going to rinse all this the best we can, and then we're gonna get to the canning process. So over to the sink, let's rinse all this, get it in a bowl, and we're gonna go from there. Okay, this setup's fairly easy here. You can see we've got 2 big stainless steel bowls and a colander in the middle there. Basically what you want to do is to get the salt off here. So just as you can see, I'm just simply giving a spray and then rinsing a little bit at a time in the colander. And then I'll put that into the larger bowl to the right there. Interestingly enough, you can notice the bowl on the left how much brine there is. So I think we did a good job getting the salt. So we'll continue to rinse this, and then we'll put it in that large bowl to the right, get it all rinsed, and then what I'll probably do is go through the colander one more time so that we can make sure that we get all the water out of it and it's well rinsed. So that's the process, pretty simple. The hardest part is you need 2 big, large stainless steel bowls, but it's just about that easy. You can see I drained the water out of it there, and there it is, fairly dry. And it goes into the final bowl. All right, there you go. That's the process to rinse it. It's not too hard. Okay, as you saw, we just rinsed the Chow Chow. So I put the Chow Chow in a 5-gallon stock pot. So now we're going to put in the liquid to give it that tangy taste. So what we're going to start with is about 6 cups of vinegar. Just like that. And we're going to use 4 cups of water. And there's 4 cups of water. Excellent. So next thing is the sugar. Now this is the little scary part. We're going to use 8 cups of sugar. So there's 1, 2, 7, And whatever this is, it will. All right, 8. Wasn't sure I was going to make it, but I did. All right, so there's 8 cups of sugar. So next thing we're going to put in is celery seed. So this recipe calls for about 2 tablespoons of celery seed, or actually a tablespoon and a half. So there's the celery seed. And turmeric. So about a little over 2 tablespoons of turmeric. So we'll add that. That gives it that nice yellow color that you normally see with bread and butter pickles too. All right, there we go. Turmeric in there. And then I think the last thing is mustard seeds. So we will need 3 tablespoons of mustard seeds. So this is a little variation that I've done in the past, is I've used pickling spices in here too. And that seems to work really well. But I really have fallen in love with these mustard seeds. They're black, so they're unlike the normal kind I used to buy, which was more of the yellow mustard seeds. The black are a little more pungent. They have a little more flavor of mustard. So I've really fallen in love with these, and this is what I've been using for most things that call for mustard seed. But beware, it is a little more mustard flavor for sure. So we need 3 tablespoons of that. So there's 1, 2, and again, really, this is kind of estimates, 3. So there's 3 tablespoons of mustard seed in there. Basically what we're going to do now is we're going to stir this up so it's mixed up well. Then we are going to put it on the stove. We're going to heat it to a boil for about 4 minutes. And then we'll spoon it into our mason jars, and then we will water can it. And we'll water can it for, I believe, 10 minutes. Yeah, water can for about 10 minutes. So we'll stir it up, get it on the stove, and we'll continue on. Okay, I thought I'd take a little break here and just show you what it looked like in the pot, just to kind of get a feel for, you know, how much liquid and how many spices there are. So you just kind of see me stirring it up here. It's kind of hard to do that, hold the camera with the right hand and stir with your left hand and not have the pot slide around. So anyhow, just wanted to show you that, and just to give you a feel for, again, the size of the vegetables and also the amount of spices and liquid. So also, kind of in the same vein, is you're going to let it boil for 4 or 5 minutes, the Chow Chow. So I just wanted to show you a little bit of what that looks like, just for reference. So there you go. So kind of amazingly enough, the Chow Chow got to boil about the same time that the water did for the water bath canning. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and fill the jars and get them done and get them in the water bath. And there is plenty of liquid in here, so that should not be a problem. And we'll fill them about a 3/4 of an inch or so from the top. And we'll call that somewhere good. So there we are. Chow Chow. Very hot. All right, so we'll go ahead and see how many jars we have. Okay, now we have a few made up. I'm gonna go ahead and get these in the water bath. So what we wanna do first is just dip the paper towel in a little bit of hot water. And then we'll just, that's really hot. We'll just wipe the lids like so, just to get any sticky stuff off or anything on there from filling the jars. Hot water, hot paper towel, let me tell you. You're thinking, duh, dumbass, right? All right. Keep doing that. Just Just make sure they are clean. You want a good seal. If they're not clean, you get a little piece of food on there, then you'll ruin the seal. It won't ruin the day. You just put it in the fridge and just use it right away rather than on the shelf. Okay, pretty simple. We'll just put the lids on it, just like so. And I don't remember how many fit in that water bath, in that 5-gallon pot. So we'll do what we can. Okay, so we'll put our ring lids on. So here's where a lot of people get wrapped around the axle when they first start doing this is how tight to tighten the rings. So basically what I do is just 2 fingers, just tighten them. You want it to be tight enough that it doesn't leak water in there, but you don't want it so tight that as it cans, it can't release a little air from inside, especially when you're pressure canning. Just a little goes a long way. Yeah, when I first started doing this, I absolutely fretted how tight they need to be. But again, about 2 fingers. Just give them a good tight. I've been doing it long enough now. I pretty much by feel, you can kind of feel it compress the seal just slightly. Okay, I'm gonna see if these fit before I put lids on the others. So, okay. We will put these in here. And also don't forget, if you're going to water can, make sure you have a baffle on the bottom of your pot so that you don't just sit the jars on the bottom of the pan where the pan can get really hot. You can bust the jars and that really sucks. I've never had it bust because of that, but I have had them bust for other reasons. So there we go. See how many more we can get in there. So you also want to make sure that about 2 inches of water covers them. So we can fit one more. So let's do that. There we go. And in the water bath. Okay. And actually, when you put the jars in, you can see a little air release. So don't be crazy about that. Okay. Now I'll turn the wick back up on these. And they'll be boiling here quickly. As soon as they boil, I'll set a 10-minute timer. And then we'll pull them out, let them rest. Maybe on a towel. If you have granite counters, you don't want the real cold counters, so put a towel down on the granite counters. And just let them go ahead and cool. You want to let them cool all the way. You don't want to play with them when they're lukewarm or even hot, because you can disturb the seal and then you ruin all your work. So best thing is just put them down, leave them, and then when they're cool, you can take the bands off of them. And if you can pick up the jar by the lid, you're perfectly good. It's a good seal. You'll also see when it seals that the little button, you'll actually hear that too. You'll hear that while it cools, which is really cool because that's success, right? So you'll hear that little button. But anyhow, they should all be sucked down, and then take the bands off and store them. So I'll finish these up and we'll come back and just see how many we got, and we'll call it a day. All right, if you can hear that timer, that means the 10 minutes is up. So let's go ahead and get the water bath, the jars out. This is the fun part. When all the hard work is over, and now you can just let them cool. And the last one for the first batch. Oh, did you hear that pop? Not sure if you can hear it, but it popped, which means it's done. Okay. Okay, I've just put a little more water in it because I did end up canning some quarts, so they're a little taller. So let's go ahead and get the lids on these as well. Okay, now we'll load those into the water bath when it's up to temp, and we'll process those, and then we will be done. Alrighty, well, after a couple days of work, we have finished canning the Chow Chow. This was probably a little more than I've done in the past. The cool thing is, remember, whatever you have left in the garden before the first frost, you can pull that out, or you can just figure out from the grocery store what you might want in your Chow Chow. There's no real recipe. It's just a bunch of vegetables that you might have laying around or you don't want to be frozen and ruined. So sky's the limit on what you might put in your Chow Chow. So from today, I think we got 12 pints, 3 quarts, and then a half a quart. Did you hear that? Did you hear that little ting? Maybe you can hear it in the microphone, but that's success. Anyhow, pretty good. This will last for several years, but for my family, it'll probably be, I don't know, 1 or 2 years, and we'll finish this up. So hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was something you might try sometime. If you have any questions, certainly leave me questions in the comment. If you like this, I'm going to try to do videos like this in the future. So if you hit the like and subscribe button, that would be awesome. Thanks for joining me. Till next time, see ya. What the hell? Try that again. All right, that worked a little better.